Canada has recorded its first death from the coronavirus. The victim was a man living at an elderly care facility, but its age is not known. The whole of Italy is in lockdown as the number of cases surges. It's the first country in the world to attempt a nationwide lockdown.
The death toll in Italy is edging towards 500, with the number of confirmed cases surpassing 9,000. Italy is also suspending its top-flight Serie A football league until April 3rd.
Over in the US, President Donald Trump has yet to be tested for COVID-19, even as his incoming chief of staff and at least 4 other GOP lawmakers put themselves in quarantine. This after coming into contact with an infected person at a political event. The White House said Mr. Trump has neither had prolonged close contact with any known confirmed patients, nor does he have any symptoms.
Meanwhile, the spread in South Korea seems to be slowing down, with 35 new cases reported today. It's the lowest daily rate of new infections in 11 days. The total number of confirmed cases there is inching towards 7,500, with 54 deaths.
China reported 19 new confirmed cases, but no new locally transmitted cases outside of Hubei province for the third straight day.
Well, joining us now with the updates on the situation in China is China Bureau Chief Tan Dawn Wei. So, Dawn, 0 locally transmitted cases outside of Hubei province for the third straight day. President Xi Jinping himself paid his first visit to Wuhan since the crisis erupted in January. Are these all pointing to an improving situation in China, or is it still too soon to say, Dawn?
Yes, these are very clear signals that the situation in China, especially in Hubei province, is pretty much under control. President Xi's visit is symbolic, but definitely not unexpected. It was only a matter of time that he visits Wuhan. And now that they've gotten a grip on the outbreak and the numbers are stabilizing, it is possibly the best time for Mr. Xi to visit. We can expect that they may soon dial down the prevention and control measures. In fact, just today, Hubei province announced that it is easing its lockdown by implementing a color-coded health rating system that would allow residents who are considered healthy to travel freely within the province. And perhaps quite soon, too, we may see China declare victory over this fight against the coronavirus outbreak.
Wow. So while the spread of the virus within the country has slowed in the last week, China is growing more aware of the threats of imported cases either by foreigners or locals returning home from hotspots. So what have authorities been doing to address these concerns?
Well, the number of imported cases are still low, just 69 cases from overseas so far. But yes, they're definitely keeping their eye on travelers coming into the country, especially those coming from South Korea, Japan, Iran, and Italy. In Beijing, for instance, people coming from these countries will have to be quarantined for 14 days. And all travelers entering the major airports, such as the ones in Beijing and Shanghai, will have to fill in a health declaration form and have their temperatures taken. But the situation is fluid, and the rules seem to be shifting from day to day. At one point, it was announced that anyone coming into Beijing will be subjected to quarantine. And then a few days later, the authorities relaxed those regulations by exempting people who have been away from China for 14 days or more. But just yesterday, they again toughened these measures for foreigners, telling them to minimize unnecessary outings.
Well, 12 of the 14 temporary hospitals in Wuhan have closed. The remaining 2 are due to shut today. Do you think this is premature? Because how will the city cope if a second wave of cases hits?
Yeah, well, there's not much point in keeping them open, the beds are empty. The situation in Wuhan has gone from acute bed shortage to at the height of the epidemic when there was something like 2,000 over new infections a day to just 19 cases yesterday. And the Chinese state media describes it as going from 人等床, which means people waiting for beds, to 床等人, which means beds waiting for people. So in the worst case scenario, should there be a second wave of infections, which I think is quite unlikely, these makeshift hospitals can come to life again because the infrastructure is there. What they simply did was to convert gymnasiums, exhibition halls, schools into these treatment centers.
Right. Okay, so moving on, some cities have reported 0 cases. Do you think this is an accurate assessment? Is there any way to know if these cities are still conducting tests?
Well, China will always have its detractors, who question whether the numbers are too good to be true. And to a certain degree, some of that cynicism stems from China's long-standing instinct to cover things up, whether it was SARS or in the early days of this coronavirus outbreak. But I don't see how it would fudge the numbers at this point because of all the intense scrutiny that it is under, just not just nationally, but more important, domestically. Because in this current climate, I would say it would be almost impossible for the authorities to play down or even cover up any clusters or small-scale outbreak because people are so unhappy and they're so sensitive to this issue. And even though I think China may be close to declaring victory over this crisis, it is still not entirely out of the woods yet. And I think it will stay vigilant in keeping up social distancing measures and ferreting out suspected cases to be tested and treated. Because the last thing it wants is to let the reins go too quickly and too much and risk another outbreak, especially given how contagious COVID-19 is.
Well, Dawn, on Saturday, a hotel in Fujian that was used to quarantine people collapsed. 20 people were killed. Do you have an update on the 10 people who have yet to be rescued?
Yes, unfortunately, these 10 people are still trapped in the rubble and rescue work is going on around the clock to try and locate them. After the building collapsed on Saturday night, rescuers pulled 61 people out of the wreckage, while 9 others escaped on their own. There have been about 1,000 firefighters who have been deployed to do search and rescue work, and the National Health Commission, which is the Chinese health authority, has also sent 18 medical experts there. But the window to finding these 10 people is narrowing because it's been 3 days since the hotel collapsed.
Right. Many thanks for joining us, Dawn. I've been speaking to China Bureau Chief Tan Dawn Wei. Keep up to date on the COVID-19 situation worldwide at straitstimes.com.